Listen, I'm going to tell you a story that still chokes me up to this day. My son put me in this nursing home thinking I was just some worthless old man. He had no idea that tucked away in my things was a document that made him nothing more than a tenant. Life can really mess with you sometimes, you know, in ways you never see coming, not even in your worst nightmares. John Miller's my name. I'm 72 years old, and up until 3 months ago, I'd been living in the same house for 50 years. The house where I married my Maggie, where I raised my son Bob, where I thought I'd grow old surrounded by grandkids and family. All those good things you dream about when you're young. But that's not how it worked out. Maggie passed away 2 years ago. Liver cancer came on real fast. 1 month she was fine, next month she was in the hospital, 3rd month she was gone. After that it was just me and Bob. But Bob changed after his mother died. Got distant, you know. Started showing up only when he needed something. "Dad, everything okay?" he'd ask on the phone, but I could tell he wanted to hang up quick. "Yeah, son, don't you want to come over for dinner Sunday?" "Ah, Dad, I got plans Sunday. Maybe next time." Always next time, and next time never came. I was doing just fine on my own. Got up at 5 every morning, same as always. Made my coffee, walked to Joe's bakery for bread, took a walk around the park, came back home, had lunch watching the news. 50-year routine I wasn't planning to change. But then, one Saturday morning, Bob showed up with a look I'd never seen before. Kind of nervous, kind of rushed, checking his phone every few seconds and looking around like he was scared of something. "Dad, we need to talk," he said right at the door. I was in the kitchen having breakfast, same as every day since I retired from the factory. Toast, fresh coffee, milk that my neighbor Mr. Manuel brings from his farm every week. Bob wouldn't even sit down to have coffee with me, something he always did when he was little. "What's wrong, son? Something happened?" Bob just stood there in the kitchen, jingling his car keys, couldn't look me straight in the eye. "Dad, you can't live alone here anymore. It's too dangerous." Dangerous. That word kept bouncing around in my head. Dangerous for who? For me, who knew every corner of that house, every creak in the floorboards, every sound at night. Or dangerous for him. I found out later he was having money troubles and needed to sell the house. "Bob, what are you talking about? I'm doing fine here. I take care of myself, cook my own food, keep everything clean." "Dad, it's not that. It's just, what if something happens to you when you're alone? What if you fall? What if you get sick?" I looked at him and could tell it wasn't a son's worry. It was something else, some kind of urgency I couldn't figure out. "Son, if I fall, I get back up. If I get sick, I call you. Always been that way." "Dad, I already talked to the people at St. Vincent's nursing home. It's a really good place. Nurses around the clock, people your age to be friends with, activities, everything you need." Nursing home. Those words came out of his mouth like it was the most natural thing in the world, like I was some old appliance he was donating to charity, a broken-down refrigerator that didn't work anymore. "Bob, I don't want to go to any nursing home. I want to stay in my house." "Dad, you don't get it. It's all set up. I already paid the first month. You're moving today." Today. He'd decided my whole life without even asking me. 50 years in that house, and he wanted me out the same day he showed up with this idea. I tried to argue, tried to explain that I'd been taking care of myself just fine since Maggie died, that I had my routine, my neighbors, my whole life there. But Bob had already made up his mind. All he gave me was 30 minutes to pack a bag. "Just what you need, Dad. They've got everything there." One suitcase, 72 years of living, 50 years of marriage, a lifetime of memories in every corner of that house, and everything I could take fit in one small brown leather suitcase that my Maggie used when we'd visit her sister up north. I grabbed some clothes, my heart medication, the photo of Maggie that always sat on my nightstand, and for some reason I can't explain, I also took my father's old chest. A dark wooden chest that had always been stored under our bed, full of old papers I'd never bothered to look through. On the way to the nursing home, Bob kept talking about how I was going to adjust well, how I'd make new friends, how it was better for my safety. I just stared out the car window watching my neighborhood go by, the bakery where I'd bought bread every day for 20 years, the park where I used to take Bob to play when he was little, Mrs. Mary's house where she always waved at me from her window. All of that was being left behind. My whole life was being left behind. At the nursing home, Bob helped me up the stairs to the third floor. Old building, smelled like disinfectant mixed with reheated food. Room 314, a single bed, small closet, table and plastic chair. And Mrs. Eleanor, who was going to be my roommate. "There you go, Dad. You'll be fine here. Got everything you need." He gave me a quick hug, one of those rushed hugs from someone who's got somewhere else to be, and he was already heading down the stairs before I could say anything. I heard his car drive away and disappear into traffic. That's when it really hit me. I was alone in a strange place with strange people, far from everything I knew and everything that reminded me who I was. Mrs. Eleanor tried to make conversation. "Mr. John, welcome. I've been here 6 months. It's hard at first, but you get used to it." "Thank you, ma'am. That's real kind of you. Your son seems like a good person. Worried about you." I didn't answer. Wasn't going to start talking bad about Bob to someone I just met. But deep down, I knew what I'd seen in his eyes wasn't exactly worry. I started putting my things in the small closet. A few shirts, 2 pairs of pants, medications on a shelf. I put Maggie's photo on the little table between the 2 beds. There she was smiling, same way she smiled when we were young. "Miss you so much, sweetheart," I whispered, running my finger along the frame. That's when I remembered the chest. Why'd I bring that heavy thing? Didn't even know what was in there. I put the chest on the bed, heavy as anything with that old rusty lock. I'd always carried the key with me, hanging on a chain around my neck. Strange habit I picked up from my father and never dropped, even though Maggie always complained about it. "John, what an ugly habit walking around with that key hanging like some kind of charm," she'd say. Charm, if she only knew. I opened the chest after all that time. Strong smell of old wood, of things stored away, of time standing still. Inside was a bunch of papers yellow with age, some old photos from my wedding, birth certificates for me and Maggie, my father's work papers, and a leather folder with documents I vaguely remembered seeing when I was younger, but never really paid attention to. I sat in the plastic chair, put on my glasses and started going through the folder. At first I couldn't make heads or tails of it. Property deeds, certificates, papers covered with City Hall stamps, all from the 1950s, with that old-fashioned handwriting that's hard to read. But then, as I kept reading, I started recognizing things. Street names I knew really well. Flower Street. That's where Joe's Bakery is, where I've been buying bread for 20 years. St. John Street, where Mrs. Mary lives, who always waves at me from her window. Main Avenue, where the bank is, where I go every month to get my Social Security. My hands started shaking. What I was reading couldn't be right. I grabbed another document, then another, all with my father's name, Anthony Miller, and then with my name, John Miller, as the one who inherited everything. My father. My father had bought all these properties back in the 1950s, when the neighborhood was still mostly empty lots, when there was hardly anything built around there. And from what I could understand in those papers, he'd left it all to me when he died. "Mrs. Eleanor," I called out, my voice kind of shaky. "What is it, Mr. John?" "Ma'am, can you read pretty well? You get a good education?" "Yes, Mr. John. Finished high school, worked as a secretary for years." I got up and went over to her bed with the papers in my hand. "Could you take a look at this? I'm not understanding it right." Mrs. Eleanor put on her reading glasses, turned on the lamp, and started reading carefully. She stayed quiet for a long time, just turning pages, frowning, reading parts over and over. "Good heavens, Mr. John. What is it, ma'am?" "You own almost the whole neighborhood where you used to live." Owner of almost the whole neighborhood. Those words kept spinning in my head and I couldn't wrap my mind around it. Me, John Miller, retired factory worker, widower, dumped by my own son in a nursing home. I owned properties? "You sure about that, Mrs. Eleanor?" "Absolutely sure, Mr. John. Look here. House number 15 on Flower Street, lot 23 on St. John Street, that commercial building on Main Avenue. All in your name." I got up feeling dizzy and went to the window. From up there on the 3rd floor, I could see a good part of the neighborhood. The bakery where I always bought bread, the little market where I shopped, the park where I'd sit in the evenings to watch people, the houses where I knew almost all the neighbors, and according to those papers, almost all of that was mine. Had always been mine, I just didn't know it. "Mr. John, what are you going to do now?" Good question. What was I going to do? My son had dumped me here thinking I was dead weight, a worthless old man with nothing to offer. And now I was finding out I owned the ground he walked on, owned the houses where he'd played as a kid. That night, I couldn't sleep at all. Just lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about so many things my head felt like it might explode. I thought about little Bob, running through the house, playing in the park, growing up in that neighborhood that had always been ours, but I didn't know was literally ours. I remembered conversations with my father when I was younger, right after I married Maggie. He always talked about leaving something for the children, but I never really got what he meant. Thought it was just worried father talk. John, a man who doesn't leave anything for his children wasn't much of a man, he'd say. But Dad, you already taught me to work, taught me to be honest. Isn't that leaving something? It is, son. But there are other things too, things you'll understand when you're older. Now I understood. My father wasn't just talking about lessons, about setting a good example. He was talking about real assets, about inheritance, about concrete things that would be left for me and my children. Only my son didn't even care to find out. Dumped me in a nursing home without even asking if I had anything valuable to leave behind. Over the next few days, I started watching the activity down below. It was like getting a new TV, except instead of watching shows, I was watching my own property at work. How many people went into the bakery early morning? How many cars passed on the avenue during rush hour? How many kids played in the park in the evening? All of that busy and alive, making money, paying rent, and me up here, forgotten in a nursing home room, being treated like I was worth nothing at all. Mr. John, you've been different since you found those papers, Mrs. Eleanor said one Thursday afternoon. Got a spark in your eyes that wasn't there before. It's just that I'm seeing things different now, Mrs. Eleanor. My whole life I thought I was just another retired worker. Now I find out well, I guess I'm a property owner. So what are you going to do about it? That's what I kept asking myself. Should I use all this power to get back at Bob, show him who really ran things, or try to understand why a son does something like this to his father? I picked up my father's photo that was with the documents. There he was, serious-looking, with his neat moustache looking like the hard-working man he was, steady eyes, straight shoulders even for the photo. What would he do if he were me? My father was always a fair man, tough but fair. He always said something that stuck with me. John, the truth can set you free or tear you apart. You get to choose how to use it. On Friday, I worked up the courage and asked Nurse Catherine, who takes care of us here, to call Bob. It's urgent, Nurse Catherine. He needs to come see me. Any health problems, Mr. John? Should I call the doctor? No, ma'am, it's not about health. It's about family, about things that need to get sorted out before it's too late. Nurse Catherine called right away, but Bob said he could only come Saturday. Always making excuses, always putting his father off. But this time I didn't mind. I'd waited 72 years to find out this truth. I could wait one more day to tell him. Bob showed up Saturday morning looking the same as always, like someone doing a favor, someone who had better things to do. Didn't even say hello to Mrs. Eleanor properly, just waved from across the room. What's going on, Dad? The nurse said you needed to talk to me about something urgent. I looked at him standing there in the middle of the room, jingling his car keys, checking his watch. My 45-year-old son, hair starting to go grey like mine did at that age, too thin. Always been thin. Blue eyes just like his mother's, but without that warmth, that patience she had. Sit down, Bob. I need to show you something important. He sat on the edge of the bed but kept messing with his phone, like even here he couldn't really be present. Bob, you remember your grandfather's chest? The one that was always stored at the house? Yeah, sort of. Why? Because there's something in here I think you need to know about. I took the folder with the documents and handed it to him. Bob took it without much interest, like someone taking a bill to pay, and started flipping through it quickly. Dad, what are these old papers? Read them carefully, son, take your time. At first you could tell he wasn't getting any of it, but as he kept reading, his face started changing. His eyes got wider, his mouth dropped open a little, his forehead wrinkled up. Dad, this is property ownership papers for just about all the houses and lots in our neighborhood. Inheritance from your grandfather, that I never really knew the value of. Bob stopped messing with his phone. For the first time since he got there, he was paying complete attention to what I was saying. "Dad, are you saying that I own all of this? The bakery where you bought candy when you were little, the park where you learned to ride your bike, the lot where the bank is, where I get my social security check?" Bob went completely quiet, a heavy kind of quiet that felt like it might last forever. He looked at the papers, then at me, then back at the papers. "Dad, did you always know about this?" I knew my father had left some property, but I never imagined it was this much. Never really bothered with those old papers. "But then, you're owner of just about everything you can see from that window, including our house, the house where you grew up and that you're trying to sell." That's when something happened I wasn't expecting. I saw my son cry. Not happy tears, not surprised tears. Tears of shame, the kind that tighten your throat, burn your eyes, and come from somewhere deep inside. "Dad, I didn't know any of this. And if you had known, Bob, if you'd known, would it have changed anything?" He looked down and didn't answer right away. Just sat there for a few minutes, crying quietly, holding those papers. And honestly, I was glad he didn't answer. Some questions, you're better off not hearing the answer because you already know what it's going to be. "Dad, forgive me. Please forgive me for everything I did." Forgiveness. A word I never thought I'd hear from my own son. A word that hurt worse than if he'd yelled at me or called me names. "Bob, it's not about forgiving. It's about understanding that people have value whether they've got money or not. I'm still the same father I always was, with these papers or without them." We spent the rest of the morning talking. For the first time in years, really talking. No rushing, no phones ringing, no Bob checking his watch. He told me about the debts he had, about trouble at work, about the pressure he was feeling to fix the family's money problems. He told me he'd thought about selling our house to pay off the debts, and that's why he'd brought me to the nursing home. Not because he was mean, but because he was really desperate. I told him about how lonely I felt here, about how much I missed our house, our talks on the porch, our father and son routine that we'd built up over the years. "Dad, do you want to come back home?" "I do, Bob, I really do." "Then you can come back today if you want." But then I stopped to think, did I really want to go back? Just like that? Like nothing had happened? Like I hadn't learned anything from all this? "Bob, I'll come back home, yes, but I've got one condition." "What's that, Dad?" "That we turn part of the house into a place for other old folks who are alone like I was. That we use these properties your grandfather left to do something good, something that really matters." Bob smiled. It was the first real smile I'd seen on his face in a long time. A smile that reminded me of the little boy he used to be when he played in the park. "You were always smarter than me, Dad, always thinking about other people before yourself." It's not about being smart, son. It's about not forgetting where we came from and where we're headed. Today, 2 months after that conversation that changed our lives, I'm here on my front porch telling you this story. Mrs. Eleanor came to live here too, along with 3 more friends from the nursing home who didn't have family or whose families had given up on them. The house is full of life again. There's laughter, conversation, people cooking together, watching TV together, sharing the good times and bad times of everyday life. Bob comes to visit every Sunday now, without fail. Brings the grandkids, who I barely knew before and who now spend the whole Sunday here with me. We sit in that little park that was always mine, but now I know is literally mine, and talk about everything and nothing. The ownership papers are stored back in my father's chest. I know they're there, I know what power they represent, but I don't need to keep looking at them. The important thing isn't having papers that prove you own something. The important thing is knowing you have value, with papers or without them. And you who've been listening to me this whole time, let me ask you something. Have you ever stopped to think about your own worth? Not the value of what you've got saved in the bank, not the value of the car you drive or the house you live in, but the value of who you are, what you mean to the people who really love you. Sometimes we need to almost lose everything to find out we were always worth more than we thought. Sometimes we need to get thrown away like old junk to discover that underneath it all there's treasure hidden away. Now when the sun's going down and I'm sitting here on the porch watching the street, I think a lot about my father. Did he know those old yellowed papers were going to change my life someday? Did he imagine his son would need to find out he was rich to feel valued again by his own family? I don't know the answer to that. What I do know is that life has these strange twists we can't explain. Sometimes you've got everything right in your hands and don't know it. Sometimes people treat you like you're worth nothing, but deep down you've got value that even you don't know about. The important thing is to never give up. Keep believing you're worth something, even when it seems like everyone around you has forgotten. Keep your head up, even when your own children treat you like you're just in the way. Tell me from wherever you're listening to me right now, have you ever felt forgotten by your own family? Ever feel like you weren't worth anything to anybody anymore? If the answer's yes, I want you to remember what I told you here today. Your worth isn't in what you've got stored away in some old chest. It's in who you are inside, and nobody can take that away from you. Not even the people who should love you most in this world. Tell me something. Have you ever found out you were worth more than you thought, but right when the people who mattered weren't around to see it? Life's got these twists that make you laugh and cry at the same time, but that's when you find out what you're really made of inside.